The first time Dr. Yulo saw a sneeze, he nearly called for planetary quarantine. It happened during a diplomatic visit on Earth. The Intergalactic Medical Union had dispatched him to assess the planet's microbial biosphere after reports of biological chaos circulated through the outer colonies. Yulo, a Terrelvian with 3 ocular nodes and skin like smooth basalt, took his role seriously. With over 200 planetary pathogen assessments under his belt, he considered himself unshakable, until he met Isaiah Lorne. Isaiah wasn't anyone particularly important in the cosmic scheme of field biologist contracted by the Earth Coalition to escort alien dignitaries through the more natural parts of Earth, where biospheres thrived without synthetic interference. He had a sun-weathered face, a slight limp from an old hiking injury, and a habit of talking to plants when he thought no one was listening. Yulo had found him strange, but tolerable, until the sneeze. They had just entered the northern edge of the Amazonian buffer zone. Yulo was scanning a vine with alarming toxin levels when Isaiah, trailing behind, gave a sudden explosive eruption from his face. HHCHHD. Yulo leapt back, 3 of his limbs flailing. Containment breach, he yelled, voice crackling through his translator. Did you expel internal fluids? Isaiah blinked. What? You sprayed particulate matter into open air. Is this a biological attack? No, I just sneezed. Pollen's thick today. Yulo's ocular nodes narrowed. You mean to say, this is involuntary? It's allergies, not contagious. I'm fine. Yulo pointed a scanner at him, the device beeping erratically. Your immune system is engaged in active warfare. Your nasal passage is inflamed. Your temperature is elevated. This is a Category 2 pathoresponse. Why are you not in quarantine? I already took antihistamines this morning, Isaiah said, wiping his nose with his sleeve. I'll be fine in a bit. Yulo stared at him, horrified. You live with this? Isaiah chuckled. You should see flu season. Yulo did not find that funny. Later that night, in the clean containment dome set up for alien personnel, Yulo replayed the footage from earlier. Isaiah had sneezed 5 times during their 2-hour trek, and once coughed after brushing against some mold. His vitals had fluctuated but never spiked alarmingly. Still, Yulo couldn't accept it. The human body is a microbial battlefield, he dictated into his report. It hosts millions of viral strains, bacterial colonies with shifting alliances, and fungal organisms that coexist under unpredictable peace treaties. The host species appears unaware of the daily biochemical warfare waged within its own tissues. He paused. And they call this normal. The following morning, Isaiah brought Yulo a thermos of something steaming and foul-smelling. Drink up, Isaiah said, grinning. Ginger and lemon. Helps with the sinuses. I have 5 livers and no sinuses. Isaiah took a long slurp. Your loss. The field trip continued. Yulo cataloged several dozen new pathogens in less than a week, some of which had no known cure in the intergalactic database. Isaiah brushed them off like mosquito bites. One afternoon, Yulo watched a mosquito bite Isaiah. He slapped it, winced, then kept walking. You were just injected with a blood-borne parasite, Yulo said, aghast. Yeah, but I've had all my shots. Yulo's oculars flicked toward him. Shots. Vaccines, Isaiah said, adjusting his pack. You know, immunizations? We take weakened or inactive versions of viruses, introduce them to the body so it can build up defenses. Makes you less likely to get the real thing. Yulo stopped walking. You deliberately expose yourselves to diseases. Not the live ones. Just the bits that teach our immune system what to look for. It's like giving your body a wanted poster before the criminal shows up. Yulo made a horrified gurgling sound. Isaiah raised an eyebrow. You guys don't vaccinate? We use genetic cleansing nanites, controlled environments, and sterilization fields. We do not. Train our bodies to fight death by introducing pieces of it. Isaiah shrugged. It works. Yulo scanned him again. The immune system readouts were indeed active, but organized as if Isaiah's body had memorized hundreds of invaders and built little defense squads for each. He filed the data away, disturbed but intrigued. 2 days later, things took a turn. They were hiking through a wetland restoration zone when Isaiah slipped on a mossy rock and fell awkwardly, his left leg folding under him. The crack was soft, but unmistakable. Isaiah cried out, rolling onto his side and clutching his knee. Ah, damn it. That's not right. Yulo rushed forward, scanning. Fracture detected. Tibial plateau. Dislocation risk high. Yeah, Isaiah groaned, teeth clenched. Feels like it. Remain still. I will call for medical transport. Isaiah didn't argue. His face was pale, sweat beading along his brow. Yulo noted the pain response with clinical interest. The human was clearly in distress, but not panicking. 40 minutes later, the evac team arrived. Isaiah was sedated and airlifted to the Earth Coalition Recovery Facility in Manaus. Yulo accompanied him, insisting on monitoring the human's progress. The doctors confirmed the fracture with imaging. We'll need to realign the joint, then stabilize it. Might need surgery depending on ligament involvement. Recovery'll take months. Yulo's oculars widened. Months. The human doctor nodded. He'll be on crutches for a while, then rehab. We'll do physical therapy once the bone starts knitting. Yulo turned to Isaiah, who was conscious again, doped up but lucid. You will be incapacitated for months. Isaiah gave a weak laugh. Bones take time, Yulo. Yulo frowned. You accept this? What's the alternative? Grow a new leg. Yulo considered that a very reasonable option, but kept that to himself. Over the next 10 days, Isaiah remained in the facility. Yulo stayed longer than was strictly necessary, his curiosity outweighing his schedule. He watched as Isaiah dealt with pain, medication side effects, boredom, and the slow indignity of sponge baths and assisted bathroom trips. Through it all, the human remained. Steady. Not upbeat. Not heroic. Just steady. One morning, Yulo arrived to find Isaiah struggling with a set of leg exercises under the grim eye of a physical therapist. Try again, the therapist said. You're favoring the other side. Isaiah grunted, sweat dripping down his nose. I'm trying. It's like my muscles forgot how to do this. They didn't forget. They atrophied. We'll wake them up. Yulo waited until the session was over. You endure this willingly? I'd rather not, Isaiah said, taking a long sip from his water bottle. But it beats the alternative. You could have died, Yulo said. From infection. From blood clots. From exposure to pathogens. Yeah, but I didn't. Yulo stared. I don't understand your species, he said finally. Your biology is a disaster. Your planet is a petri dish of horrors. And yet you persist not with caution, but with defiance. You sneeze into the wind. Isaiah smiled faintly. We have vaccines. Yulo sat with that for a long time. That night, in his report, he began a new section. Addendum. Earth's viral landscape is incomprehensibly hostile. Yet the dominant species has, through deliberate exposure and biological training, developed a system of internal defense that rivals some of the most advanced nanite protocols. Their resilience is not in spite of their biology, but because of it. They do not eliminate threats, they adapt to them. He paused, then added, they sneeze into the wind and call it progress. He closed the file. Yulo left Earth 2 weeks later with a new respect for the species. Isaiah remained on crutches, grumbling through therapy, stubborn as ever. Yulo's final words before boarding his shuttle were simple. Try not to sneeze on any diplomats. Isaiah grinned. No promises. 3 weeks after the incident in the wetlands, Dr. Yulo returned to Earth, this time not under directive from the Intergalactic Medical Union, but under his own initiative. He hadn't told the Union yet. He wanted to observe something he hadn't been able to articulate in his final report. A suspicion, maybe, or a concern, possibly admiration. He wasn't sure. He touched down at a civilian port in Botswana, where Earth's Department of Interstellar Relations had recently opened a shared research station in conjunction with 3 alien delegations. The air was dry and clean, the sun unrelenting. The research dome shimmered like a soap bubble among the red hills. Yulo wasn't there for the station. Isaiah Lorne had been relocated nearby for convalescence. The Earth Coalition had offered to fly him back to his home continent, but he declined, citing something about not wasting a perfectly good ecosystem to sulk in a hospital bed. Instead, he'd opted for a rehabilitation center run by a joint human-alien alliance, tucked beside a dry riverbed where baobab trees leaned like exhausted sentinels. Yulo arrived unannounced. He found Isaiah seated on a shaded platform, leg encased in a polymer brace, sweat beading on his temples as he struggled through resistance training with a band looped around his ankle. You're late, Isaiah said without looking up. I was not expected. You're still late. Yulo crouched beside him. You are undergoing kinetic resistance exercises. Should you not be resting? Isaiah grunted, wobbling slightly. Already did that. Now I get to play tug of war with my own calf muscles. You appear, underwhelmed by the process. It's tedious and humiliating. But the nurse gives me mango slices after, so I endure. Yulo examined the brace. You have not yet regained full extension. Nope. Your gait will be compromised. I'm aware. And this does not concern you? Isaiah leaned back on his elbows, breathing hard. It concerns me exactly enough to keep doing the work. Yulo studied him in silence. A chime interrupted them. A tall figure with pale glassy skin and 6 knees approached, carrying a tray of fruit and a folded towel. It was a Valari, one of the partner species overseeing the rehabilitation center. The Valari offered a shallow nod to Isaiah. Hydration. Nutrients. Surface cooling. Isaiah took the towel and pressed it to his neck. Appreciated. Rent. Yulo waited until the Valari had drifted away before speaking again. You are not disturbed by the presence of foreign caretakers? Isaiah raised an eyebrow. Why would I be? They lack human anatomical knowledge. What if they attempt the wrong intervention? They asked questions, studied our protocols, took notes. Hell, they even corrected my form last week. Rent knows more about my hamstring than I do. Yulo tapped his chin. You trust them. I trust their effort. That's enough for now. Later that evening, Yulo wandered the perimeter of the facility. There were no fences, just natural inclines and the occasional buried sensor. Humans were less concerned with escape than with falling into unattended gullies. He passed a group of patients weaving through an obstacle course made of uneven stone and low-hanging branches. One of them, a young woman with a synthetic spine brace, waved at him mid-step, nearly tripping over a root. Careful, he called out. She laughed. What's the fun in that? Yulo found Isaiah again on a bench facing the horizon. The sun had dipped low, casting everything in long shadows. You were correct, Yulo said, settling beside him. Flu season is not your most dangerous time. Isaiah cracked his knuckles. Wait until you see mating season. I will decline. They sat in silence for a moment. A wind kicked up, rustling the trees. Yulo turned to him. Why do you pursue recovery manually? Your species has regenerative assistance, yes? Cellular stimulants and bone matrix accelerators? Isaiah nodded. Yeah, but they don't always work well on load-bearing joints. Especially if the tissue's already been stressed from overuse. You push too hard, too fast, you're back to square one, but with more pain and less cartilage. That is inefficient. It's human. Yulo tilted his head. But why refuse augmentation? You could eliminate the structural problem entirely. I'd lose the feedback. Feedback. Isaiah tapped his temple. Pain, stiffness, fatigue. They're not flaws. They're signals. I don't want to shut the alarms off. I want to learn what they're trying to tell me. Yulo considered that. Most species silence discomfort at the first opportunity. Isaiah shrugged. That's probably why most species panic when discomfort comes back. The next morning, Yulo asked the facility supervisor for access to the therapeutic observation dome. It was granted on the condition that he not interfere with patient routines or offer unsolicited commentary. He agreed, though he had no intention of remaining silent if something alarming occurred. The dome itself was a transparent half-sphere constructed with anti-UV shielding and climate modulation. Inside, patients moved through shallow pools, climbed artificial inclines, and practiced weight transfer on shifting platforms. The environment was reactive. Floor panels adjusted resistance based on individual profiles. But it wasn't all technology. There were birds nesting in the rafters. Real ones. Isaiah was balancing on a narrow beam with uneven footing, arms out, face drawn in concentration. A small crowd had gathered to watch another patient, a synthrian with multiple limbs, attempt to mimic the same exercise using suction cups on its feet. The synthrian fell twice, each time with a noise that sounded suspiciously like laughter. Isaiah called across the dome. You're getting better, Trin. The synthrian responded with a series of clicks. Yulo approached the trainer overseeing the session. The human interacts with others during therapy? The trainer, a squat Ladari with a voice like bubble wrap, nodded. Social reinforcement improves compliance. Lorne's particularly effective. He reframes setbacks without diminishing difficulty. Yulo watched as Isaiah stumbled slightly, caught himself, and resumed walking. How many sessions has he completed? 14. 17 if you count the pool work. And the prognosis? Full recovery in time. He's stubborn. Yulo couldn't argue that. 2 days later, a storm rolled in. Not violent, but persistent. The kind of rain that soaked into bones and made old injuries ache. The dome was sealed for maintenance, so patients stayed indoors. Yulo found Isaiah in the common room, leg propped on a cushion, reading a paperback with half the cover missing. "You were stationary." "I'm healing." Yulo pointed to the book. "Is that fiction?" "Sort of. It's about a guy who gets stranded on another planet and has to survive with nothing but potatoes and sarcasm." "Sounds implausible." "Exactly why it's fun." Yulo sat opposite him. "You do not find this enforced rest frustrating?" "I do. But I also know what happens if I push too early. I've already met that version of myself." "Will you return to field work?" Isaiah closed the book. "Eventually. But I'll prep better next time. Different boots. More caution on wet stone. Maybe don't try to photograph a carnivorous lily while hiking on one leg." "You require risk to feel fulfilled?" "I require purpose. Risk just shows up uninvited." Yulo filed that phrase away. A perfect example of humanity's relationship with chaos, not courting it, but not retreating from it either. That night, he contacted the Intergalactic Medical Union for a formal extension of his Earth observation license. He had more to learn, and humans, as it turned out, had an endless supply of lessons. By the time the Rehabilitation Center's hydrotherapy unit reopened, Isaiah had shed the leg brace and graduated to a walking stick made from repurposed carbon filament. The staff had offered him a sleeker model with gyroscopic stabilization, but he declined in favor of one that didn't beep when you leaned on it wrong. Dr. Yulo, still on Earth under a discretionary research extension, had taken to observing these sessions from the upper mezzanine, where the air was dry and the floor vibrated faintly with the hum of filtration systems. He wasn't alone. A rotating cast of alien researchers filtered in daily, many drawn by Isaiah's unorthodox recovery. That morning, the dome's shallow pool had been restructured into an uneven terrain simulation, designed to mimic the unpredictable footing of various planetary surfaces. Half-submerged resin boulders, moss-textured ramp inclines, and concealed dips made the course look more like a game than therapy. Isaiah stepped into the water, rolling his shoulders. "You're limping less," called a blue-scaled Onari from the platform. "But your foot placement is still mathematically inconsistent." Isaiah adjusted his grip on the walking stick. "I'll try to offend your spreadsheets less today." The Onari blinked both sets of eyelids, unsure if that was an apology or a challenge. Yulo leaned forward, watching as Isaiah began the course. The water reached just below his knees, slowing him but providing buoyancy. Each step required deliberate contact, and Isaiah muttered quietly to himself as he moved, counting seconds between shifts in weight. A few slips caused minor splashes, but he always recovered without assistance. Halfway through the course, a Lervian biokineticist clacked her mandibles in frustration. "He is compensating with micro-rotations in the hip girdle." "That's inefficient." "He knows," said the human therapist nearby. "We're training proprioception, not perfection." "Then why not recalibrate the joint alignment?" "Because the brain's the one that needs training, not the leg." The Lervian turned to Yulo. "This species insists on rebuilding function through repetition. Would it not be more expedient to install a new limb entirely?" Yulo studied Isaiah's determined expression as he navigated a particularly narrow incline. "They do not replace what can still be recovered," he said. "They treat limitation as a temporary state, not a defect." The Lervian huffed through her spiracles. Isaiah completed the course 12 minutes later, soaked and breathing hard. He waved off the offered towel and sat on the pool's edge, feet still in the water. "Next time," he said, "someone else wears the ankle weights." "You were not issued any," said the Onari. Isaiah looked down. "Well, that explains a lot." After a warm-down stretch and a brief snack involving something called a peanut butter protein rectangle, Isaiah joined Yulo beneath the shade canopy by the arboretum. "You look displeased," Isaiah said, biting into the bar. "Was it the hip thing?" "No. I am revising my expectations." Isaiah raised an eyebrow. "When I first observed your injury, I assumed your species would prioritize structural correction. Instead, you pursue incremental adaptation. I like to think of it as stubborn optimism. That appears to be your collective baseline." Isaiah tossed the wrapper into a nearby recycler. "You didn't come all the way from the mezzanine to compliment my rehab style." "What's up?" "There is a proposal," Yulo said. "The Valari wish to replicate your recovery model for their own injured scouts." They struggle to reintegrate movement after terrain-related injuries. Isaiah sat up straighter. You think they'd benefit from this? Their biology differs, but the psychological elements are compelling. You exhibit pain tolerance, risk assessment, and behavioral persistence. These are difficult to simulate. I'm not a simulation. Precisely. Isaiah wiped sweat from his brow. So they want me to teach falling down. They want you to teach getting up. 3 days later, the first Valari scout arrived. Her name was Luna, and she moved with a lurching drag that suggested significant neural lag between intent and execution. Her lower joints were wrapped in reactive gel bands, and she communicated through a vocal harmonizer that translated her clicks into modulated words. Isaiah met her by the obstacle course, now modified for multi-limb navigation. He offered no greeting beyond a nod, then demonstrated a short sequence of movements across a balance rail. When he reached the end without incident, he turned to her. Your turn. Don't rush it. Luna hesitated, shifting her weight forward, then back. Yulo, standing nearby, watched without intervening. He had learned that Isaiah's teaching style involved minimal instruction and maximum exposure. The idea seemed to be that failure was part of the curriculum. Luna attempted the rail, fell off after 4 steps, and landed sideways with a splash. Isaiah offered her a hand. Again, she hesitated, then grasped his wrist and pulled herself up. Over the next hour, she fell 7 more times. Each time, she rose faster. By the end of the session, she had crossed the rail twice without error. Yulo documented the entire exchange, noting changes in posture, reaction time, and what could only be described as confidence. That evening, Isaiah sat under the same canopy, sipping something cold from a metal cup. Yulo approached. She progressed quickly. She didn't overthink it, Isaiah said. Once she realized falling wasn't failure, she stopped fighting gravity and started learning from it. Your methods are imprecise. Life is imprecise. Yulo sat beside him. The Valari have requested 3 more sessions. They wish to rotate in additional scouts next week. Isaiah drained the cup. Better get more balance rails. You are not compensated for this. I get mango slices. Yulo tilted his head. You are content with fruit in exchange for biomechanical instruction? I'm content watching someone figure out they're stronger than they thought. There was a long pause. Yulo finally said, I believe I understand your species better now. Isaiah looked up at him. You say that every time. This time I am certain. Go on then. You do not overcome adversity by outmatching it. You outlast it. You negotiate with it. You adjust until it has no choice but to yield. Isaiah nodded slowly. Sounds like us. You treat healing as participation, not restoration. Because it is. Yulo stood. Then I will include this in my final submission. You're done. My research license expires tomorrow. I am due on Velan Prime for a respiratory audit. Isaiah leaned back in his chair. You're gonna hate their pollen. I intend to bring a mask. They stood in silence a moment, the wind brushing dry leaves against the canopy. Finally, Yulo said, thank you. For enduring. For educating. For doing neither with malice. Isaiah offered his hand. Yulo took it. And with that, the alien left Earth for the last time, carrying with him not just data, but the memory of a man who healed by walking through water, falling with purpose, and teaching others to do the same.